So we now proceed to my second favorite color, which is blue. Our first blue rare in Dominaria United is Academy Loremaster. Academy Loremaster is a creature human wizard with 2/3 for 2 blue mana. And it says at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player may draw an additional card. If they do, spells they cast this turn cost 2 generic mana more to cast. This is a control. This is a draw go, because draw go decks usually has instants, so they would be glad to just keep on drawing on their turn, pass the turn to the opponent, and have open mana to just cast instant spells. Academy Loremaster is really, really enticing for control decks. It's a, even though if the opponent gets a extra card, but having the 2 more to cast is a pain. And please correct me if I'm wrong, if you're watching this right now. But if you have 2 Academy Lore Masters and you get to avail to draw 2, would it cost 2 more? I think. So, yeah, I give you the opportunity. It has the symmetry on it, but depending on what kind of deck you're doing, you can avert the symmetry of it. As a Master Lewin would say, pwede pang flash decks through that. But like I like the design on Academy Lore Master, and expected to see once in a while in some decks, especially in draw go decks. That would be. And this is Aether Channeler. Aether Channeler is a creature human wizard for 2/1 for 2 generic mana and 1 blue mana. And it says whenever Aether Channeler enters the battlefield, choose one, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying, return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and draw a card. So, on if you just look at this on in the face, it's like a Archmage's Charm. Having that kind of versatility is very good in a blue creature as well. Maybe this is really good in, like, tempo decks or in control decks. Hopefully we get to see some of this Aether Channeler action, because the black one hasn't seen that much action. This is Defiler of Dreams. And it says on it has the Pyrection mechanic, which makes your blue permanent spells make you can be able to be paid 2 life to instead of paying blue mana. But the next in line would be whenever you cast a blue permanent spell, draw a card. Ish. If this was only 4 mana or less, then this could have been a Badoozy. And as a 5 mana flying 4/3, the stats are like Wind Elemental. It reminds you of Air Elemental. I'm sorry, not Wind Elemental, Air Elemental. But if it gets to untap and you have like blue permanent spells, kind of okay. It's kind of okay. It's kind of okay. This is, I know, I'm sorry if I murdered the first name. Potty Gin. Potty Gin is a creature Gin or flying with star 4 toughness for 1 generic mana and 2 blue mana. And it says Haughty Jin's power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 generic mana less to cast. Ability of making your other instant and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. It has flying, and it is very aggressively costed for a blue card, which has counter spells, cantrips, and bounce effects. So I think Delver is still in rotations. Maybe we might see some Haughty Jin Delver action. It's very aggressively costed, and giving the ability to cast instant and sorcery is cheaper. It's very okay. And speaking of weird blue cards, we have our next rare saga. This is a Badoozy. 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 This is the Facing of Zelfire. The Facing of Zelfire is a enchantment saga for 2 generic mana and 2 blue mana. And it has read ahead. And in chapter 1 and chapter 2, another target non-land permanent faces out It can't phase in for as long as you control the phasing of Zelfire. And on chapter 3, destroy all creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller creates a 2/2 black Pyrexian creature token. True Wrath of God? Mm, It's a very clunky. Very, very clunky indeed. Just give me the populate if you really want, like, the board wipe at 4 mana. As you can also see, with its very, very illustrious price tag for now. So, Phasing of Zalfir, I would very, very, very be sad if I open this. This is Silver Scrutiny. Silver Scrutiny is a sorcery for X generic mana and 2 blue mana. And it says you may cast Silver Scrutiny as though it had flash if X is 3 or less. And it just says draw X cards. I'm not really sure. For 5 mana, you get to draw 3 instant speed. Pwede. Wizard decided to like, no, won't have instant draw a lot. So you'll have Silver Scrutiny. Control decks really need every tool, especially with the new set coming in and rotation. So the card pool is very limited. So control decks is not very common in the first few weeks of a new set. And this is Vidalian Hex Catcher. Vidalian Hex Catcher is a creature merfolk wizard for 1/1 for 1 generic mana and 1 blue mana. And it says other merfolk you control get +1/+1. Sacrifice a merfolk, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1 generic mana. So you have a 4 spike in a stick. You get to throw your fish. And currently in standard, there are 16 merfolk. In modern, either Vile merfolk would now have a counterspell merfolk on a stick. Which is a very nice, and it's also a lord. Kung mag $1 to siya, which is unlikely. Because modern and like legacy and like legacy merfolk or something like that. Pioneer merfolk? Oh my gulay. Merfolks mag-ingay. Happy sila lahat. Pero like in standard, I will hug the person and congratulate them if they decide to make a merfolk deck in standard. Here's the other rare, and it's also a merfolk. It is Vidalian Mindsinger. Vidalian Mindsinger is a creature merfolk wizard 2/2 for 1 generic mana and 2 blue mana. And it has kicker 1 generic mana, 1 red mana, and or 1 generic mana and 1 green mana. And it says Vidalian Mindsinger enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it for each time it was kicked. And Vidalian Mindsinger enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature with power less than Vidalian's Mindsinger's power for as long as you control Vidalian Mindsinger. So for 5 manas potentially or 7 mana, you get to steal a very big creature in the opponent's side, or if you have a pesky opponent the other side, you could just get their Talia or something like that, or so, like like the Pavel, you could steal the Shaman token or the Reflection itself. You could steal it using Vidalian Mind Singer. But nonetheless, this is a very good sideboard card for like Timur, Izzet, Simic decks. Because Control Magic is really good. Not gonna lie. Hopefully in Standard we could see this as a sideboard. Control Magic is good, but depending on the removal and the lineup of creatures to take control, you might need to use Kicker on it sometimes. And we proceed with our first blue mythic, and this is Spinks of Clear Skies. Spinks of Clear Skies is a creature Spinks for 5/5 with flying and ward 2. And it has for 3 generic mana and 2 blue mana, and it has domain. Whenever Spinks of Clear Skies deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and on the other into your graveyard. So, who do you remind of this card? This reminds of a good old friend from Dungeons and Dragons set, the dragon, the blue dragon. And this has the potential of, like, becoming your control finisher. Because even with Ward 2, even if it's just Ward 2, it's still a headache for removal or 2 extra mana. And it still has Ward even if it's attacking. And if it deals combat damage to a player, and if you're like a 3-color deck, oh, it's incremental if you have Domain. Even if you're like in 2-color decks, this would be very good. Or even in one color deck, this is an automatic draw card, even in a mono blue shell. But most probably, this would be like your control finisher in a Jeskai, Esper, Izzet. If you're in a very slow control deck, in limited, this would be fantastic. 50-50 on it. More on like 60-30. I'm not really confident. I'm on the 60, not confident. But we proceed with our next blue mythic, and this is a Baduzi, and this is Vesuvan Duplimanzi. Vesuvan Duplimanzi is an enchantment for 3 generic mana and 1 blue mana, and it says, whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature, except that it's not legendary. You control it. You know what? So we're not really sure about Vesuvan Duplimanzi, but so it's a meh for me. I really don't like cards that make you do loops. Like, oh, I have this on the map, so I need to have a creature, and I need to target that creature. So you have to do certain steps just to get a payoff for this card. So I'm not really confident in this card. It's really good in Commander. Vesuvan Duplimanzi. It's a very meh card for me, and that is your blue Mythics.